Hello, welcome to my channel, Edible Thoughts Makes. My name is Stephanie, and this channel is where I share with you my works in progress, finished projects, things I'm cooking up, books I'm reading, funny things my kids may say. My hope is that as you watch this episode and the previous episodes that you find some inspiration along the way. This is episode 136. It is the first week of December, year 2024. I am coming to you from I think 10, 15 degree Fahrenheit day here in Minnesota, where I live with my husband and our 2 young children. It did snow recently, and I just love it so much. I really enjoy winter, and our winter season is usually about 6 months out of the year, but it has been unseasonably warm in November, and I just changed the kids' bed sheets to warmer flannel sheets. Usually I probably would have done that by mid-October, end of October by now, but it was just so warm that I didn't even do it until the beginning of December. I would usually have a little bit of vlog footage before kind of jumping into the full introduction of how I run things here. However, I ran into some technical difficulties, so there won't be that video. It's usually only a couple minutes anyway, but yeah, just didn't happen. It's okay, we're gonna move on. Today, I do have several projects to share with you. I have quite a few finished projects, quite a few works in progress. Some are new, some you've seen before. It has been probably, three to 4 weeks since we last had a sit-down chit-chat. I think about 3 weeks. It was middle of November, I think, when we last talked, or was it beginning of November? I don't even remember. I feel like this time of year flies by so fast. I mean, I feel like the entire year went pretty quickly, but November, December usually flies pretty quickly, and I'm feeling it. I am not one to stress about arbitrary deadlines or things like that, but there are definitely a lot of other obligations that just have to get done, and we all have the same 24 hours in a day, and there are chunks that are more out of our control, and then some parts that we have a little more choice for how we use that time, and I'm just needing to sit down and kind of Tetris out that schedule intentionally, thoughtfully, mindfully, and that includes scheduling in time to do things that I need or want to do versus things that I just have to do. Sometimes there's overlap and sometimes they're totally different, but yeah, I just need to do that for myself, and maybe you needed to hear it too. I am not here to give you permission or not permission or whatever the case may be. You are in charge of your own schedule, your own things. I am more so maybe making a mental note to myself, and that may or may not be helpful to you. Okay, totally went on a side life tangent there. But yeah, it has been a good few weeks. We've seen a lot of family. There's been a lot of family time. We have gone to get our Christmas tree. You'll see that behind me here. Every year we drive to this family-owned tree farm, and you get a saw, you get a map, so you know which type of trees are in what part of the lot. And then sometimes we find our tree within 30 minutes, and sometimes we walk around for 2 hours. So this time it was actually pretty quick. It was pretty cold that morning, 5 degrees Fahrenheit. I'll put a picture here on the screen of how bundled up I was. I think I was wearing 6 hand-knit wool items. I had on a hat, a cowl, mitts, a sweater, a camisole under that sweater, and hand-knit socks. And I had on fleece-lined leggings and snow pants, and then like a winter coat over that. And yeah, it was nice and toasty. I felt zero wind except for like the exposed part of my face. But yeah, it was nice. Always a fun experience. The sun was shining even though it was frigid. And yeah, so we have our tree and it's just beautiful. The majority of our ornaments are all handmade or have some sort of memory significance to them. Well, in the beginning, we used to have those filler balls. Like, I don't remember if they were glass or plastic. They might have been plastic. We might have switched out all the glass ones when the kids were really little because we were afraid of, for safety reasons, we were afraid of them breaking. Over the years, as we've gotten more and more handmade ornaments and just ones from traveling and things like that, we haven't needed those filler ornaments. The ones that we have just fill up the entire tree, and that makes me so happy. If you are new here, the way I usually run these videos is I have a welcome intro section. Usually there's a couple minutes of a vlog, but that, like I mentioned, isn't happening today. And then we go into finished projects, works in progress, eats and reads, and then food for thought. Eats and reads are, books I've read or am reading. things I've cooked up recently. I've cooked a ton in the last several weeks, so I'm not sure if I'm just going to like run a little slideshow of what the things are and maybe just put text on the screen of what they are. I'm not sure yet. We'll see how I feel when we get to that point. And then food for thought is usually something that's been in my heart, on my mind, usually related to making, because making is part of my 24/7, but not necessarily. Like, it's sometimes more general life things. And I did have a couple of things that I was thinking about. Again, I'm not sure how I'm going to feel by the time we get to that point in this video. I do include closed captioning on all of my videos. Click on the CC button. If I speak too fast or slow for your preferences, YouTube also allows you to adjust the speed. And I use Ravelry for all of my crocheted and knit items, and those are listed by project in the description box below the video. I will also link to makers, designers, things like that. If they have a website, I usually link to the website because all their social media, all of their pattern shop type of things are all on there, so it just gives you one place to go. And yeah, I think that's all of that. So let's get started. Before we jump into the finished projects that I have since our previous episode, I want to briefly just tell you what I am wearing. This is the academic vest by Skandir Knits. She is a Norwegian designer living in London. I think she's still in London. I don't remember exactly. But this is knit out of Purl Soho's Good Wool, which is a sport weight yarn that can easily be knit at different gauges. I really enjoyed this color work. This is knit bottom up. You create steeks for the armholes and the V-neck, and then you cut that. You have reinforced edges, and then you pick up and do the ribbing. I really enjoyed this process. I did knit mine longer, and so this ribbing took forever. I believe it was on US 2 needles because the pattern might have called for US 2.5 needles, but I didn't have those, so I used a US 2, which I believe is a 2.75 millimeter needle. I might not have all of these details correct in my head because it has been a few years, but I really enjoy wearing this vest. I feel like the colors I chose make it multi-seasonal and easy to match. So I have on a thin teal wool long sleeve shirt underneath, and then with this 100% wool vest, I feel nice and warm but not overheated, and it is an easy layer that I can still put on a winter coat without feeling any extra bunchiness under the arms, which if you've been here for some time, you will know that that is something that bothers me a lot. And so yes, that is what I have on today, and I also have on striped socks. These use self-striping yarn from Ashley of Nomadic Yarns, and I believe this colorway is Mary Kitschmas. And then I don't know what the brown is from. I think the brown might just be a random brown that I have. So hopefully you can see it okay. The yarn colors are so beautiful. There's a dark green, a gold, a brown, a peach. Oh, whoops. I think one of them is an olive that I called a brown. So let me start that again. There's a dark green, a gold, an olive green, a peach, and then kind of a lighter brown color. So hopefully you can see that okay. I feel like doing this foot up thing is never a good idea, and yet I do it anyway. I have had to mend it in one spot. I feel like it must have just gotten caught on something because it's in a spot that doesn't usually have a ton of friction. It's like by my pinky toe. I guess it could have friction just from wear in a shoe. It probably rubs a little bit, but that's the only spot I really had mend. I think I just duplicate stitched around. I'm not sure. I thought it did have a hole all the way through. Well, anyway, don't really remember, but that is what I have on today, and I'm feeling kind of festive without being overly like red, white, and green. I don't know. There's nothing wrong with that either. I don't really know why I said that. So anyway, moving on. So I have wandered into Gnome Land, and I'm happily stuck there. I have seen quite a few gnomes floating around for some time. Sarah of Imagined Landscapes has these wonderful patterns of various different gnomes and little stories that go with them, and it just warms my heart so much. Susan of Madtown Mama made a ton of gnomes in the last, I think, was it last year or 2 years ago? Sorry, I don't remember exactly, Susan, but I loved her gnomes. So much fun. At that time, I was not bitten by the gnome bug quite yet. I find generally stuffed toys to be super fiddly, and I have made a ton of crocheted ones, the amigurumi ones, but those crochet up pretty quickly. I just don't always love that there's more holes. Even if you crochet it super tight, just the nature of the stitches doesn't create as, it's still a dense fabric, but not as like smooth of a fabric. And then I felt like when I did some of the knit ones, it was just so fiddly. I did some of the ornament balls that are stuffed. I've done birds. I think there are a couple of birds on this tree somewhere. Anyway, I've done some. I have done them in the past, and I've knit little dolls for my kids, but it's just not something I generally gravitate towards. But then there have been so many more gnomes. Yeji of And Made Co. I think I have that handle right. I'll stick it on the screen so hopefully you can see it, and also link them in the description box below this video. They both have YouTube channels as well, and she made a ton of gnomes and they're just so cute. And I really like that she also weighs her yarn before and after, because it just gives you a better idea of how much yarn you need for a project. And for me, I personally take the notes so that I know when I'm going to make it again, but I know when other people do it, it is super helpful to me as well, because if it's a pattern I've never made before, I want to know if I can accomplish it with what I have. Now, a lot of patterns do give you yardages and grams of how much you need. They also sometimes buffer in a percentage of how much yarn so that you don't run out. However, they don't list that percentage. So I don't know if I'm going to be potentially 10% off, 15% off, but it's usually in that range. And then everybody's gauge varies. Everybody's yarns are a little bit different. So things can be off from whatever the pattern states, but it's just helpful to have other people's yardages to compare to as well. So when I hear it and think, oh, I only need 5 grams for that part, well, I've got 5 grams of whatever and I can make that work. So super helpful. Again, everybody doesn't have to do that. I just find it really helpful because that's how I project plan. And I generally try to work from what I have. And so knowing what I need, and if it's right there at my fingertips, I can cast on right away. 2 other makers who have greatly inspired me to start knitting gnomes are Tracy and Stacy, who are sisters of the Maker's Notebook YouTube channel. They also have Instagram accounts here. I will hopefully have their handles here on the screen, but I will link to their YouTube channel down below in the description box. They have also made lots of gnomes, and I can't remember if they are doing the December mystery gnome. I think Sarah, the designer of Imagined Landscapes, is doing a mystery gnome for December. I am not doing it. I don't generally like mystery make-alongs, so I also don't like to put pressure on myself to have to make something every week or every day in December. I just don't like doing that. So, but yeah, I'm excited for the people who like doing that. That's totally fine. I don't get FOMO, fear of missing out, of really anything. And so I'm happy for people who like doing what they like to do, but I don't ever feel like I have to do it or that I'm missing out on something. It's just fine. Anyway, total other tangent there. But yes, check out Stacy and Tracy if you want to see more gnome making. They don't just make gnomes. They also make other accessories and socks and sweaters and things like that. So here we are. Aren't they so cute? This is the free pattern Natty by Sarah of Imagined Landscapes. And it comes in one size. It is a fingering weight pattern. Needle sizes used are US 1 or 2.25 millimeter needles and a US 1.5, which is a 2.5 millimeter needle. Of course, you can change the needle size and the yarn weight. You will just have a different size gnome. These are so cute. So cute. This one I made first. It has a blue tweed hat, and that yarn is from I think a mini from Sweet Sparrow Yarns, and it is a lovely dusty light blue with tweed that is black, brown, and white. And then the rest of the yarns on here are from the Farmer's Daughter Fibers Sock Squad. So I love this warm brown that I used for the body. And then I have a gold that I used for the nose. And then the beard is this kind of creamy taupey color with very subtle speckles. And I just love it. I could have stuffed it a little more. I think near the end it's a little tricky to do because you're decreasing and the yarn pulls pretty tight if you stuff it really tight, but I had a harder time with that. So the bottom is a little bit wrinkly because it's not stuffed as full, but I did better on the second one as far as that goes. So super, super cute. I love it a lot. The amount of yarn I used was actually pretty minimal. In total, it was less than 25 grams. And let me just share that with you. So the hat used 4.6 grams. The nose used 0.53 grams. The beard used 2.23 grams. And the body used 12.71 grams. Now, something super exciting about knowing those grams is when I'm knitting self-striping socks with precious self-striping yarn, I often have a tiny bit left over. It isn't always great for another pair of socks because I may or may not want cuffs in stripes or whatever, but I can make a gnome. So if I have, let's say, less than 15 grams left, ta-da! I can knit this super, super cute gnome. Now, this one uses Meet Me at Orchard House, and this self-striping yarn is dyed by Michelle of Woolens and Nosh. The cranberry red hat was the mini, and then the nose and the beard are actually from another Woolens and Nosh sock set called Pressed Flowers, and all of these are her Corriedale sock base, and the hat used 5.18 grams. The self-striping body used 12.31 grams. I actually did run out, and so I had to skip one decrease round and just pull it together, so the bottom's a little tight. And then the beard used 2.59 grams, and the nose used 0.59 grams and was actually part of a stripe from the Pressed Flowers set. And this taupe beard is the contrast color from that set. And the striping I actually did in reverse, so it's mirrored at the belly. I only had a teeny tiny bit left, and since I knit my socks two at a time, they were already split in two balls. So I just knit one in one direction, have the middle section be the same color. Middle section has the largest number of stitches anyway, so it wasn't going to be too much bigger of a stripe, and so I felt like I could do that for the middle section and then continue on the way down. So again, I used up all that yarn, and I have a teeny bit of the mini still left over that I can use maybe as a nose. I don't know if I have enough for a beard somewhere else, but anyway, I love it. These two are so cute. I do have a third one on the needles, and I'll show that in the works in progress section, but I wanted to share, as I was knitting these, my 8-year-old was so interested. Now, I've taught both of my kids how to crochet, sew, and knit. They don't do anything super complicated, but like increases and decreases can be a little tricky, and I feel like a gnome might be more than she can handle, and so we went a different route. Ta-da! So I have pom-pom makers, and so she made these super cute pom-pom gnomes. I also have these wooden balls on hand. This is what happens when you do a lot of different crafting. You just happen to have a lot of different materials on hand from many, many years. And so we hot glued on these wooden balls for the nose. For the hat, it's crocheted, so she did most of it. I helped with the increases. We didn't really follow a pattern. There are ones out there, and I'll link to them in the description box below this video. There are free ones too, but we kind of just did whatever. And so the hats are a little wonky, but gnomes are wonky, so it's okay. And oh my goodness, it's so cute. So there's a little bit of stuffing in the hat just to make it a little sturdier, and then we hot glued that down to the palm too. So these are her additions to our gnome family. And I'm sure there will be more. These are just so cute, and we love them. And they can be used as ornaments if you want to just do a little loop through the top or put one of those metal hanger wire things through it, and it can hang on a tree. And yeah, we just love them. They're just They're just so cute. So you know the book, The Day the Crayons Quit? And they just decide they don't want to be used anymore and they run away. I feel like I'm having that kind of day with technology today. I just realized that the colors of the bulbs in the background were kind of going in and out. It is a feature where the rainbow ones kind of like fade in and out. But I didn't realize that until I offloaded like a section to just kind of do a test. And I didn't realize that until a little bit later. So I'm sorry if that was distracting. Obviously I can't see it because it's behind me and I just didn't realize I was doing that. Hopefully I turned the switch and that it is not going to be fading in and out now. And then I started recording and I finished talking about a pair of socks and I realized I never hit record. So that was annoying. Anyway, I took a chocolate break. I had some of my lukewarm tea and I should probably reheat it or make another cup at some point. And we are just going to move on. Here are my socks that I talked about already. These are the November Colorwork Cuff Club sock pattern by Summer Lee Designs, as well as the November Sock Squad sock set by the Farmer's Daughter Fibers. Both are Indigenous women-owned companies, and they are just lovely creatives. They come up with beautiful work and share them with us, and it is so much fun to be able to knit up the November colorway and the November cuff. There is this bluish purple that I used for the ribbing and for the slip stitch heel flap and turn. And then this raisiny brown purple color I used for the mane. And then this silvery gray I used for the contrast. This is a light fingering weight yarn that is 75-25 superwash merino nylon. It comes in 463 yards for 100 grams, but this silvery gray color and this raisin brown color, purple color, came in 50 grams each, and then this bluish purple came in 20 grams. I really like how these socks turned out. I cast on for the adult medium. Usually I cast on a size between the adult small and medium, but because they are colorwork socks, I just wanted to make sure they would fit. And it's a light fingering weight yarn, which means my fabric density is a little tighter. And so I did end up with a decent amount of stretch because I did go up a needle size for the colorwork. I used a US 2, which is a 2.75 millimeter needle there. And then for the rest, I used a US 1, which is a 2.25 millimeter needle. Here's the inside, showing my floats. I do knit my colorwork pretty loosely. I stretch out the stitches on my right needle and go up a needle size, so they are plenty stretchy. And I believe there's a little bit of colorwork by the toe, but I didn't do that because I don't like the feeling of colorwork or floats near my toes. I just don't like that feeling. And so yeah, I really like how these turned out. I wear a US 7 women's shoe size, and I ended up using 44 grams of the raisin color, 10 grams of the blue purple color, and 7 grams of the silver gray color. So in total, it came out to be about 61 grams for this pair of socks. And with the density of the fabric, I think they're going to wear really well over time. And they are super comfortable. Here is the journal calendar with illustrations by Jessica Rue, who is the inspiration for all the different colorways. And here is November's illustration. And I will hold up the sock next to it so you can see the inspiration with the yarn and the sock. I have December's yarn, and then Summer Lee did release her December colorwork cuff, but I don't think I'm going to be knitting it, at least not into socks. There is, I think, 3, maybe even 4 color rounds, and if you were here for one of October's episodes, you'll know that I don't like doing that. I enjoy the rhythm of 2-color stranded color work. I do not enjoy the rhythm of more than that. I just can't get in a good rhythm for it, and I just don't enjoy the process. People suggest duplicate stitching afterwards. Yes, I can do that. I know how to do that, but that takes out the enjoyment of that process for me, and so if I don't want to do it, I'm just not going to do it. There are plenty of other things I do enjoy doing, and if I do plan on doing it, the tree motif, I'll hopefully, I think I've been pointing to the wrong side here. The pictures will be on this side. On the screen, I will share what Summer Lee has posted for the December Color Work Cuff Club. There are 2 designs, and one of them you could leave out the snow part and just do the tree in the background, and I think that may end up as just 2 colors. I don't really remember, but I'm not super attached to it. I think it looks really cool. I love it, and I look forward to seeing what other people come up with. I just don't know if I'm going to do it, so, and that's okay. I may even go back to August, which has that flower motif. I really love that flower motif. I might do that. If I remember, I'll pop a picture of that up here too, so you can see it. So maybe I'll do that, or do one of the other ones that had an extra bonus color work chart that I didn't knit previously. I might do that. I don't know. I don't have to, so it's just if I feel like it, I will do it. So we shall see. Okay, the next are a pair of mitts. These are the November Marled mitts, or November Mitts Marled, I can't remember exactly, by Jen Yard of Everything Shapes Us. I have made a lot of these because they are gifts. This is the DK or worsted weight pattern. You use a 3 or 3.25 millimeter needle and hold 2 yarns together, or you could hold 1 DK or worsted weight on its own. So with this one, I use 2 yarns that I've used in previous projects. I have a self-patterning yarn called Cardamom Multi, and I'll put the info here on the screen, I think. And then the red is like kind of speckly. It's like red and then has like white kind of speckly in it. Speckly is not the word I'm looking for. I can't think of the word I'm looking for. But it is Pearl Soho's fine print yarn, which is also a 75-25 wool nylon blend. Not merino, but really, really soft. And so I think it's pretty durable. And so with these 2 yarns held together, I think these mitts are going to wear really well. Because they are worn on your hand, you end up with some friction because you're doing other things with them, but I don't believe these will pill super easily. I did cast on for an adult medium, but I believe I knit the hand and the wrist length to an adult small and the thumb. I just wanted to make sure the recipient could wear them comfortably without them being too tight, but I didn't want the length to be too long so that it would be hard to wear them. These are for a school librarian. I do volunteer at our school library. So I've made a couple of mitts to go to the school librarians that I work with, and I think these will be really nice because, as I mentioned before, the library has a lot of big windows. It can get really cold in there in the winter, and they still need their fingers to be able to check books in and out for kids and be shelving books and things like that, but it'll keep them nice and warm. So I'm really excited to gift these before winter break. And yeah, I have one more pair to make, and if we get to the work in progress section, you will see those. But yeah, at this point, I am not quite sure how we're gonna get through everything. Yeah, we're getting there. The next finished project is a hat, and I cannot remember if I shared it last time. Yeah, I don't remember. Here it is. This is a beautiful bright red hat. This is knit in Pearl Soho's Daily Wool. It is 100% wool. It is soft like merino, but it is not merino. I really, really like it. I've knit it in a bunch of other things as well. And so this hat color is called Flame Red. It is an orange leaning red. And I initially was going to do color work, and then I decided I wasn't. So the bottom is a knit 1, purl 1 rib. And once I got to the length I wanted, I think it's close to 6 inches or maybe 5. I knit it to the cast on edge. I did an old Norwegian cast on, which is very, very stretchy, and it can stretch, as you can see, really, really far. And then once I started the stockinette portion, I changed needle sizes and knit, I don't remember how many inches, and then I did a 6-point decrease on top. I loosely followed the Tin Can Knits Anthology hat pattern. That one's also for color work, but again, I didn't end up doing the color work. And so this is what I ended up with. So I cast on for the adult small medium size, I believe, in the Anthology hat pattern. It is a paid for pattern. And then for the Ribbing, I used a US 5 or 3.75 millimeter needle, and then for the stockinette and crown portion, I did the US 7 or 4.5 millimeter needle, and I used 97 grams of yarn total. And again, I loosely followed it off of the Anthology hat pattern because my gauge was, I think, between their Aran and DK. I might have gone down a needle size and then followed the Aran weight numbers. I don't remember exactly. The fold up ribbed is not in the pattern either. So again, I just used the numbers to kind of help me figure out the crown section, but everything else, I just kind of winged it. So this is a gift for our 11-year-old, and so I need to get that all wrapped up. It is to go with a pair of mitts that I made her earlier. That was also supposed to be for Christmas, but she wanted to wear them, and it's cold, and so I let her wear them, and this will just go with that. The next finished project I'm going to share with you is a cardigan. Well, actually, it's wrapped in another finished project as well. So this is wrapped in reusable wrapping paper, you could say, but it's not paper, it's fabric. And there was a photo tutorial by Boku. Is it Boku? Buku? Why can't I think of how to say it now? Designer's name is Arona, and yeah, when I saw it, I thought, okay, I'm gonna have to give that a try, and it is just so cute. Now, I will say this is not the best option for people who like to peek at their gifts because the top is kind of open. And so I have it wrapped inside in repurposed tissue paper. Repurposed meaning I just like saved it from something else. So if there's like other packaging that we receive, I just save all of it if I can and reuse it. I'm going to have to untie the ribbon. I did attach a wooden bead to secure the ribbon. The bead essentially acts as like a little pull, not a pull cord, but it kind of cinches it, or you can like undo it. Are we ready to see it? Here it is. Ta-da! This is our 8-year-old's Christmas cardigan knit in Purl Soho's Daily Wool. I just love it so much. The stripes are in flame red, golden pink, chartreuse green, sea glass blue, and then it repeats for the sleeve, and in the body it's just one set of those. So this is the classic cardigan by Tin Can Knits. It is a paid for pattern. I knit the 8 to 10-year-old size. The pattern does come in multiple gauges. I did go down a needle size because this yarn knits up bigger. I don't know. It comes in 164 yards for 100 grams, which to me is Aran weight, but it knits up not like an Aran weight because it's not as like airy. And so it's a denser yarn, which has less yardage, but it's like bigger. I don't really know how to explain it. But when I knit it up, I did get a gauge of 18 stitches by 24 rounds, and that is on a US 7. And then the ribbing is a US 5. I ended up using 420 grams total of this 100% superwash wool. I like to use 100% superwash for my kids, or not 100%, but superwash wool for my kids because kids are messy, kids are dirty. They also need the softness, my kids do. And so anything that is not soft, they just won't wear. And if they won't wear it, I don't want to make it for them. So yeah, but they absolutely love this yarn because it's so soft and buttery, and I'm interested to see how it wears over time, like if there's going to be a lot of pilling or not. So it is a pretty tightly plied yarn, so I feel like it should do really well even though it's really soft. I did knit the sleeves long, and so the cuff right now needs to be folded up for it not to be covering her hand completely, but she doesn't mind it covering her hand because it's nice and warm that way. And then the body length does go past her waist, and I think she'll be able to get at least a couple of years out of this. And the buttons are made by my husband. They're either birch or buckthorn. We don't really remember. It's from a stick in the yard. And it is just beautiful. I love how it turned out. I did preemptively sew some elastic thread into the neckband. I did 2 rows of it, and that keeps it from stretching out. This yarn is kind of heavy and drapey, and neck lines usually end up stretching out just with the ribbing and the weight of the sweater. And so I did thread in elastic. It is white, so I'm not sure it's visible, the white on the cream, but it is there. And I'm glad it's not super visible because, yeah, I don't want it super visible. So yeah, it still has some stretch to it, but it'll pull it in much more than if it didn't have it. And I also felt like, looking at the pictures of this pattern, the necklines were also on the wider side, so I definitely wanted it pulled in just a little bit more. You do knit this top down. It's a raglan style, and then you go back and pick up for the neck band and the button band. I think you can knit the ribbing on the collar first if you want to, but I feel like because all the weight is on that part and this is a heavier sweater, I definitely wanted the stability of the cast on edge. So I didn't do a provisional cast on, I just did a regular cast on and then went back and picked up those stitches to knit the neckband. But yeah, I'm very happy with how everything turned out. I think it's so lovely, it's so pretty, and I'm looking forward to her opening it on Christmas. It is not a surprise. She's had to try it on multiple times to make sure it's where we want it to be. And I would rather something fit properly than have it be a surprise and not fit properly. And so, yeah, this is all finished. I'm going to wrap it up here and put it back under the tree. I think that is all the finished projects I'm going to share with you today. Let's move on to the works in progress. So I have a few behind me here. Let us start with the ones that I kind of alluded to previously. So we are going to first talk about the next gnome that I have started. It is the same pattern as the previous two, and I have it on a 32 or 40 inch cable right now using the US 1 2.25 millimeter needles. The hat is complete. And I have picked up and started for the body. I'm on the increase section. This uses Michelle of Woolens and Nosh yarn. This is the Targhee sock base, I believe. The other one was the Corriedale sock. They're both fingering weight, but plumper yarns. They create a very nice dense fabric. This is the colorway Mr. Fezziwig from A Christmas Carol. This self-striping sock yarn is in 3 colors. There's a cream, a dark red, and a green, and then the contrast color is a lighter green. I knit my husband a pair of socks with this yarn 3 years ago, maybe, and so this is the yarn that is remaining, and I should have plenty to work with. I have another little ball that's about the same size, and so we'll see how far I get, and then I may end up doing like a reverse striping sequence like I did with the other one here, or I'll just do it in the same order. It just kind of depends on where it ends. There's no deadline on this. We'll just see where I go. The beard and nose may end up similar to this other Christmassy one. So this one was Christmas at Orchard House and this is Mr. Fezziwig. And so they may end up with matching nose and beards. I'm not sure yet. That part is knit at the end. So we'll just see where I get to when we get to that point. The next two I'm going to share with you, I think, will be socks. Yeah, I think I'll do the socks for my husband. I am working on filling up his hand knit sock drawer. I had the intention of averaging one a month to knit him 12 pairs of socks this year. I don't know if I'm going to end up, oops, this is the wrong bag. I don't know if I'm going to end up with 12 pairs or not. And if I don't, that's okay. Oh, this isn't it either. Where's the other? Oh, here it is. But we'll just see where we go. So pair number 9 you saw last time. I am using this lovely yarn here. It is a self-striping, self-patterning yarn by West Yorkshire Spinners. The colorway is Pheasant. It is part of their Country Birds collection. And so I have my socks both going at the same time. This is how I prefer to knit my socks, in tandem, usually on US 1 2.25 millimeter 9-inch circulars. I know they are not for everybody. It is what I like to knit my plain stockinette socks on and colorwork socks. And so I have a knit to purl to cuff here, I just did it through one color sequence. And then I have knit my leg, which I did 2 color sequences. And then I added this purple contrast yarn and did a slip stitch heel, flap, and turn. And then I picked back up with my main color to do the gusset. And I have finished the gusset decreases, and now I am on to the foot. I have these light bulb stitch markers here to mark every 10 rounds, and that way I make sure my socks are the same length. And the other sock is not here because where is it? It might be on the treadmill in the cup holder. Socks are something that are light and easy that I can knit on while I am walking. I definitely cannot do it while I'm running. And if I'm just walking or fast walking, then it is totally fine. So this is a sock that I usually carry in my purse. The other one's in the treadmill cup holder. And so I just knit on them whenever I can because it is just round and round with no patterning, no counting. I don't have to look down, and I can really just pick it up and put it down whenever. So even if I just get 10 stitches in or 10 rounds in, it is still more stitches and rounds than I had if I didn't have it. It is also small enough that it's easy to carry around with me everywhere. And so that one lives in my purse. And it'd be great if I finished it by the end of the year, but again, it doesn't matter if I don't. I usually cast on 64 stitches for my husband's socks, sometimes 68. It just really depends on my mood and the yarn and the patterning or what's going on with that. And they seem to fit him just fine, whether I'm doing 64 stitches on US 1 or 64 stitches with a US 1.5. If the yarn is thicker, they all seem to wear okay. I mean, they have a decent amount of stretch to them, and he prefers his socks with more negative ease than less. And so the amount of negative ease might vary depending on the yarn I'm using and the needle size, but they still fit just fine. The next pair of socks I'm going to share with you is using the December Farmer's Daughter Fibers Sock Squad yarn. I will show you the illustration first. So here is December 2024, and the colorway is Mother Magpie. It is in the Highwood sock base, which is an 80-20 superwash merino nylon yarn, and it comes in 400 yards for 100 grams, and there's a main color and then a contrast color. And so here is the yarn. It is a highly variegated, moody gray blue, kind of gray blue purple yarn. I really like it. It is beautiful. There are soft washes of color as they transition from one to the next. And then the mini that came with this is a beautiful green. They are a low contrast pair and absolutely beautiful together. I'm not following a specific pattern for these socks. I have cast on 64 stitches. I'm doing knit 1, purl 1 for the cuff. I did an old Norwegian cast on, and I'm doing 5 rounds of the main color, 5 rounds of the contrast, 5 rounds of the main, 5 rounds of the contrast, and then 5 rounds of the main, and then I'm going to switch to a knit 3, purl 1 rib for the whole sock. I'm not sure what kind of heel I want to do yet. I might switch back to the contrast color for the heel just to break it up, and then knit straight through the foot. I probably won't switch the color for the toe, just so, I don't know. I probably won't. And then, yeah, I think these will be really lovely. I will have yarn remaining, so I may knit myself a pair of socks with them too, and definitely use the contrast color because I'll need it for the yardage, or maybe I'll knit a moody gnome. I don't know. We'll see. And then depending on how much is left, I suppose if there's 35 grams left, I could also knit a pair of fingering weight, fingerless mitts. There's so many possibilities. The next project I'm going to share with you is something I talked about earlier as well. It is another pair of the November mitts marled, except this time I'm holding the yarn with itself, so it isn't really marled. This is the Delphinium colorway from the Yarn Collective Fleurville 4-ply collection. It is a beautiful blue that's semi-solid, so there's darker parts of the color and lighter parts of the color, but not a lot of color variation. And so I am knitting these on Magic Loop. I think I'm a little bit tangled here. And I am also knitting them 2 at a time in tandem, not on the same needles. I don't like how that feels. So I knit them on their own needles. And so here I have the hand or the wrist portion done, and I'm about to start the gusset. I really like how these are coming out. This yarn is a little bit plumper than just a regular fingering weight, and so instead of an adult medium, which is what I did the other ones in, I'm doing an adult small because I think it'll grow, or it'll end up being somewhere between an adult small and adult medium, or maybe even be the adult medium. And so that is where I'm at with that. Here, I'll show you the second one. Well, I think I'm in this, yeah, I'm in the exact same spot for both. So here they are. One is on a 40-inch cable and one's on a 32-inch because that's what I have. Either way, I think for Magic Loop, I end up doing a 32 or a 40-inch. I feel like the 40-inch sometimes gets in the way. It's just so long. And the 32-inch doesn't end up in the way as much. Or maybe it's because I've been knitting so much on a 9-inch circular where there's no cable in the way. That Magic Loop ends up feeling a little like there's too much stuff all over the place. It certainly makes it a little messier in a project bag, but it's fine. I think that I can do these on 9-inch circulars, and I have with the other ones. I just feel like with the thumb gusset portion, there ends up being so many stitches on the needles that it can sometimes feel kind of crammed. And so this one I just felt like doing Magic Loop. I like how the color looks. I think with the dark and light, holding it together with itself just breaks it up a little bit more, so I don't have any large amounts of pooling. So yeah, these ones I need to get done in the next week or so. And yeah, they're super soft. It's 100% superwash merino yarn, and I have knit multiple other things with it. And the next project I'm going to show you is also using the same yarn, and I actually had to wait until I finished the portion on that other one before I could start this one, since I needed the yarn for it. So I will show you that one next. I am knitting a hat for our 11-year-old's birthday, which is next year, but it's in the earlier part of next year. And I just feel like we have a long string of birthdays from like fall into early spring. And so it's just like one right after another. And I have to be on my game. Otherwise, I'll just never get it done. So this is the Musselburgh hat by Isolde Teague. I've knit multiple of these, different variations in stripes, in colors, in how I cast on. I've just done a whole bunch of them in all different sizes. Here's the one for our 11-year-old. I think it's so beautiful. I am knitting it longer than the pattern states. This is the adult small size, I believe. I'm knitting it on a US 3 or 3.25 millimeter needle. I like the fingering weight ones on that size needle. I feel like if you have a looser fabric, it's fine because it's going to double up on itself. So basically the pattern is written for you to cast on from one crown. You do increases, and then you knit all the way to the other side, and then you do decreases. The way I like to do it isn't always from the crown to crown method. I will sometimes just do a provisional cast on somewhere, knit my crown with decreases, and then my two crowns are identical. So then I'll pick up my provisional cast on and then knit the other direction. You do end up half a stitch off just because you're going in a different direction, but you can't tell. You can't even see. So I don't think it really matters, but just so that you are aware of that. And I do use the light bulb stitch markers to mark every 10 rounds. And you don't have to do that. I just like to do it so that I know if I want to knit another one similarly, how many rounds I did. And also for this one, since I'm doing a tricolor, I wanted to know how many rounds I'm doing for each one. So for this blue section, I have 55 rounds, not including the crown. Middle section is hibiscus, and I have 40 rounds. And then the other side is rose, which is like a light, cool, pinky purple color. Like, it's very, very light, and the variation in the color might be hard to see, but there is some color variation in it. And I'll do 55 rounds before doing the crown. So this will end up being longer than what the pattern says for this size, but I prefer a nice thick brim, and so does my daughter, and this mauve color section will be right in the middle. So this side will look like this unfolded, and then when it folds up, it'll still be the mauve color. And then the other side, once it's finished, will be this lighter color on top and the mauve on the bottom. And then fold it up, it'll still be the mauve for the brim. So that should be really nice and cozy. I prefer using the 16-inch circulars for knitting this, and then in the crown sections I'll use Magic Loop because it's just too tight on a 16-inch otherwise. But yeah, this should be almost done. I'm almost to the crown section, and then I can block it, and then I can put it away. This is a project I like to do while I'm reading. I just go round and round and round for a long time, so I don't have to worry about overshooting anything because it's such a long tube. And so this, I think, will be done at least by the end of this week. So that'll be exciting to have it done and blocking. And then I can possibly cast on another one. We are on to the last work in progress. And this is a very exciting one. I've been looking forward to casting this on for over 2 years. This is the Paul Klee sweater by Midori Hirose. This is a beautiful colorwork yoke. It is a round colorwork yoke, but with raglan underarm shaping, which is a style I really like. It's a good fit. And this colorwork yoke is just so beautiful. So there are these little squares. You have increases within the colorwork that is cleverly done. And then once the colorwork section is done, you do the raglan shaping and then split for sleeves, body, and you go on your way. It is meant for a lot of positive ease. There are sizes from children's sizes through adult, and I am so excited to share with you what I've done. I'm knitting all of mine in Purl Soho Goodwool. I've collected so much of this yarn over many, many years. It is such a good price point, especially when it's on 25% sale. It's like $11 US or so, but even not on sale, it's a really good price point, and there's so many colors. I just love it. If you like heathered yarns, Goodwool is a really good one. It is 100% Peruvian wool. It comes in a really great yardage. So it's 100% Andean Highland wool. It's 383 yards for 100 grams. My main color is this teal abyss, which is a very dark heathered teal. And then I have lots and lots of contrast colors. The pattern is written for you to do really as many contrast colors as you want. You could do each section with 2 different colors, or you could like start from one side, go kind of to the center, and then do the reverse back. And there are coloring pages, so you can kind of map out how you want your colors to look. It's super fun. I'm going to show you my swatch first. My swatch is not exactly how it went, but I wanted to double check my gauge and just get an idea for what I was doing. I didn't do any increases in it, so here it is. This is what I started out with. I think I gauge swatched a couple months ago. I did do it in the round. That's why you see all this fringe on the side. So basically you carry your yarn around to the back, slide your stitches down, and then keep going. And so this is what I have. I just wanted to get a feel for it and to check gauge and fabric density. Now I'm using different needles than what the pattern calls for. Pattern uses a fingering weight yarn, and it says that the fabric is meant to be a little airier in the color work, but I didn't necessarily want that, so I'm using the sport weight yarn. I cast on for the adult extra small, which is a bust circumference of 38 inches. That should give me 6 inches of positive ease in the chest, 3 inches around the hips, and it is written for 6.25 to 10 inches of positive ease as the recommended fit. So do what works for you. And my gauge is the 22 stitches in stockinette and color work using a US 5 needle. The pattern uses much smaller needles, and I'm not doing that. So do what works for you. Definitely gauge swatch. Are you ready to see what I've got? Here it is. It is so pretty. Now this neon pop here is not Goodwool. This is by Less Traveled Yarns or Traveling Yarn. They don't dye yarn anymore, but this bright pink is called Vice. And I love this cool toned hot pink. It is definitely one of my favorites. And that's a sock yarn. at 75/25 superwash merino nylon, 463 yards for 100 grams. I was looking at some project photos, and some people's neck bands were really tight. Some people's were kind of floppy. They were just all a little bit different. And I just decided I was going to do the folded collar. It gives it a little more structure. It is still super stretchy. And then I get this option of doing this pop of color on the inside, and I like it. So basically, I knit a couple more rounds of ribbing on the inside than the outside, and so when I fold it over, I get a little pop on the top. And then in the color change, I do a knit round without any purling, and that gives it a nice, neat finish. There are short rows in the back to raise the back because our bodies are not like flat cardboards, and so there's a little more coverage needed in the back so that the front doesn't end up riding up. And I have blocked the yoke just to double check gauge, and it blocked out beautifully. My floats are nice and tidy. I will show you here on the inside. I didn't have to catch any floats. That's also kind of nice. And I just love it. I love it so much. And I am on the raglan shaping right now. I might end up being able to split for sleeves maybe next week or so, and then it's just round and round knitting. So I'm so pleased with this. I did end up using, let's see, how many colors? 15? 16. 17 including the neckband. And I did repeat some of the colors in the yoke section. So because I changed out what color it was paired with, it doesn't necessarily look the same. And I am so pleased. So if you would like to know the colorways, I'll go through them. The main color is Teal Abyss, which is this dark teal. And then in this first band, we have Pale Patina and Teal Twilight. Pale Patina is the lighter blue. Teal Twilight is the darker blue. The next section, we have Fresh Loganberry, which is the purpley color. And that is paired with Coastline Gray, which is a purple toned gray. Next band, we have Dark Spruce, which is the dark green, and Olive Oil, which is the yellowy scummy green. Next band, we have Wild Mustard, which is this heathered gold, and that's paired with Guava Earth, which is a peachy orange. Next round, we have Walking Stick, which is this taupey brown color, paired with Winter Grass, which is a natural kind of light grayish white color, and those are both undyed yarns. The next round, we have Barn Door, which is an orangey red, or red orange, paired with Pink Salt, which is a light peachy pink. The next round, we have Desert Blue, which is a more saturated sky blue color, and that's paired with Pale Patina, which is the same color used above with Teal Twilight. And then we have Wild Heath, I can't remember. That's this lighter purple, and then the Wild Violet is the darker purple. And that's a redder purple. And then the last band, we have Teal Twilight paired with the main color Teal Abyss. Now again, you can play around with these colors and do whatever you want. I wanted to create something that looked like a mashup maybe of the 4 seasons, and they aren't necessarily in order of the seasons, but they definitely have colors that are inspired by the 4 seasons, and I think this is going to be so nice to wear. I cannot wait to have this finished, but I am enjoying the process. No deadline for this. I would love to finish it in the next couple of months. We have made it to Eats and Reads. Thank you for sticking around and for listening to all of my projects. I forgot to mention earlier, but you've probably figured it out by now, that I do section out my videos, and so hopefully that makes it a little bit easier to find projects. And in my Ravelry project pages, I also make a note of when I talked about that project as a work in progress or a finished project. So not specifically where in an episode, but I'll have the episode that it was in and a link to the YouTube episode. So I probably should have mentioned that way earlier, but I didn't, and so I remembered to do it now. For Eats and Reads, I have baked and cooked a ton. If you are new here, I bake and cook all the time, every day. And so I sometimes like to highlight a certain thing that I've made recently, but because it has been so many weeks, I'm not entirely sure where to start. And at the length of this video, I'm getting a little nervous about the editing process. So what I think I might do is just mention a couple of things, and hopefully I'll have pictures flashing on the screen. I thought about just doing like a slideshow of the foods, but I don't know. I might not do that. So I had made a caramel apple crisp a little while ago. Both of my kids have braces, and so sometimes it can be a little bit trickier with certain foods that they liked before that they can't really eat now. So nothing super sticky, nothing that'll like bump off their brackets and things like that. But I did make a caramel apple crisp with a caramel sauce that wasn't very sticky or thick, and so that was something they could enjoy because they've been so sad they couldn't have any caramels. I usually make the apple cider caramels by Smitten Kitchen every fall. They couldn't eat those, and so they were super sad. So, I mean, I didn't make them, but that was something they were looking forward to that they couldn't eat. So this worked. I also made a cherry rhubarb crisp. I don't think I followed a specific recipe for that. I will try to link to recipes in the description box below this video. I will note what cookbook it is from if there's no link. I made a chicken pot pie. It was a deconstructed chicken pot pie. So you make like the pot pie soup part, and you can do that on the stove or in a crock pot. And then I made drop biscuits that you could put on top, and as you eat you can like dig into the biscuit. And so that's always a hit here, especially since it's really cold. It's definitely soup season, and with some of our busier evenings with after school activities, we really have to use the slow cooker just so that we can eat at a fairly reasonable time. And yeah, so that's one that's on rotation here. I don't think I follow a specific recipe. I think I mismatched a whole bunch of them, so there won't be one linked below. But basically you make the soup part, and then you can make drop biscuits, and then you serve it together. Recently, my brother made some ramen noodles. So him and my sister-in-law will make noodles from scratch, and then they'll make extra and deliver it to us, which is fabulous. And then they made a turkey bone broth out of leftover turkey stuff. And so we had ramen for dinner recently, and it was so good. So we had the noodles with the broth, and then I had corn, green onions from our garden that I freeze from the summer, and then I had made these soy sauce marinated eggs. That I did follow a recipe, so I'll put that in the link below, and it was really good. And it's so easy, and you have this like jammy center, and oh, it's so good, so good. My mouth is watering thinking about it right now. If there are other items, I will just have them on the screen here and maybe put like a little caption underneath so you know what it is. But otherwise, we are going to now move on to books. I have 3 books to mention quickly here. 2 of them I had to return before I could finish them. We had some late nights, so I didn't have time to read. And then because they have been really popular books, I had to return them because there's like a long wait list. So these 2 books are books that I've waited for months to get from the library. I get all of my books from the library. I only buy books if I think I'm going to read it more than once in the future. And so the majority come from the library. We have a lot of books in our house. We probably have a bookshelf in every room because we all love to read. So the first book I'm going to mention is Sandwich by Catherine Newman. I'll have a picture of the book cover here on the screen. I'm a very visual person. I often remember book covers better than I remember the title of the book or the author. So maybe you are like that too. But cover of the book's here on the screen. Sandwich was published in June 2024. It is a short book, 240 pages, standalone. And I've been reading a lot of series this year, so sometimes it's nice to have a standalone book in there, especially if it's not like a newer series where then I have to wait a year for the next book to come out. This is classified as contemporary adult fiction. There's humor, it talks about marriage, family. Basically, you have the main character is a menopausal woman. It is all written from her perspective, and it's kind of navigating this space of menopause, which I think is something that isn't talked about enough. And so that I appreciated from the book. And she talks about having her adult children, but also having her aging parents and like just dealing with the dynamics of that and the shifts in the relationships. I will say that I found the humor a little bit more crude for my taste. So it's almost like some of the things were said for like shock value. Maybe not. Maybe that's just how this character is, and that's fine. But I would say that that type of like jarring humor isn't really my thing. But overall, it was still a good read. I didn't get to finish it. I did kind of flip through the end part real quick because I had to return it. But I may come back to it another time, but it may be months since the waitlist is so long. The next book is Can't Spell Treason Without T by Rebecca Thorne. This is the first book of others. I'm not sure of which other ones there are. Published September 2022, 388 pages. This is classified as adult cozy fantasy, sapphic romance, cozy fiction, mystery. It can be compared to Legends and Lattes, but I wouldn't say it was done in the same way. There were a lot of very similar themes, plot, setup. I felt like a lot of it was like, oh, okay, I've read that before. Oh, I read that before. I felt like the characters felt a little flat. The relationships didn't really build or grow. So some of the things felt kind of repetitive. Basically, a queen's bodyguard runs away with a mage to start a new life together. They open a tea and a bookshop in a small town, and there's some conflict, but there were funny parts too. The stakes might have been higher in this one than Legends and Lattes, but I don't know. I thought it was good for parts of it, but I didn't finish it because I had to return it. And I probably won't read the next one. I don't know if it's already out or if it's coming soon because this was published 2 years ago. I'm assuming it's out. Anyway, I probably won't read the next one. I didn't think it was bad. I just didn't feel as connected to it maybe or like as invested. So that is Can't Spell Treason Without T by Rebecca Thorne. A book I picked up recently and am reading right now is Nine-Tailed by J.C. Lee, published August 2024, 346 pages. It is the first book of, I'm not sure if it's a series or duology, but it's the first book. This is classified, okay, before I keep going, the classification part. I think it's classified as older young adult, but I feel like it's definitely adult. The characters are in their 20s, kind of. I'm not going to give anything away. Kind of mid-20s. So I feel like that's usually classified as adult. Young adult, I feel like stops at 18. I'm not sure if it's just based on age or not. It is fantasy romance. It is inspired by Korean mythology. I love a good like folklore-inspired book. And there are several characters, but the main character is this not human, not God, like she's not immortal, but she's got these powers and she's not human. And there's this race to stop an ancient evil from destroying the world. They go between human and the mortal realm and the world of the gods. And there's kind of this like insta-love attraction relationship thing going on. I'm about halfway through. It was definitely like a slow burn type of romance in the beginning. And again, that insta-lovey connection thing that I don't always love. I like a relationship to build. And then I got to a really spicy scene that if it was young adult, that shouldn't be in there because it's definitely like a rated R type of scene. So I feel like that in itself would bump this to an adult fantasy romance, not young adult. So I have not finished it yet. I am intrigued by the plot. I wouldn't take the book terribly seriously, but I'm enjoying it as like entertainment. So that is Nine-Tailed by J.C. Lee. That is everything that I have to share with you today. Thank you so much for hanging out with me on this cold December day, or maybe you're in the Southern Hemisphere and it is super hot. It is pretty cold outside here. Everything is covered in snow, which I absolutely love. I wish we had more snow, but we'll take what we can get. I'm hoping that we will have a white Christmas. We'll see. I don't think temps are supposed to get up to be super high. I'm not sure. Let's see. Tomorrow, Well, it looks like we've got like 20s. It might hit above freezing. I don't know. I don't know about this. I like winter, but I feel like if it's going to be cold, there should be snow. And if it's just cold with no snow, that's just kind of sad. Okay, so there's no big food for thought section here today. I have talked on and on and on and on, and I hope you did enjoy this episode. I hope you are doing well. I hope you are taking care of yourselves, your loved ones, and your neighbors. Cheers to being creative, and I will talk to you next time. Bye.